Hello everyone. Today we are going to see about design patterns. We are going to discuss about design patterns, and in the previous video we have compared and contrast between two design patterns. One is from the behavioral design pattern and another is a structural design pattern. We have compared between the bridge and pattern and the strategy pattern. Today we are going to dig deep on the bridge pattern with an example how that bridge pattern can be implemented via code. I'm actually trying to do it in a C sharp language, trying to demo it in a C sharp language. It can be implemented in any other language as well. Therefore, today we are going to see how a bridge pattern looks like in the code and how it can be done. And first, coming to the bridge pattern, uh, just look at some basic things about bridge pattern. Therefore, in the bridge pattern, there are basically two entities which are involved. One is the abstractor and the implementer. So we have earlier seen in the previous video that there are two parallel hierarchies involved in a bridge pattern. One is the abstraction part where there will be a concrete classes implementing that abstracted class or abstraction, and there will be an implementer, another parallel interface which will be implemented by multiple other concrete classes. Therefore, these two hierarchies will interact with each other and form a bridge. Therefore, these two parallel hierarchies are generally termed as abstraction and implementer. And abstraction contains a reference to the implementer interface. This is where the bridge is formed, and this allows the two to be independently developed without one being concerned about the other. Therefore, this allows us to add any additional functionalities in the future. For example, there will be an interface and a class implementing an interface. Therefore, if you want to extend that interface to implement some other, to extend that particular functionality, we want another mode of doing things or another way of implementing that interface. We can very well add another class implementing that interface without disturbing the existing classes. That is the beauty of this particular pattern. The code changes will be very minimal in the case we want to add additional classes in the implementer. That's what we discuss now. And we have to use bridge pattern when there are a lot of classes involved in that inheritance hierarchy, and those two classes and the classes in the inheritance hierarchy depend upon each other, and we have to find out a way to actually separate out that particular functionality into two different hierarchies so that these hierarchies can grow independently and interact via that bridge connection. And second is to decide at runtime which implementation of the interface to choose for a particular refined abstraction. For refined abstraction here defines the class which is inheriting from that particular abstract class in one of the inheritance hierarchy. So that's basically about that bridge pattern. And now let's dive into code to see how that bridge pattern can be implemented via code. Therefore, this bridge pattern in the C sharp world, I have actually taken an example from the internet banking, and we will see how this particular example can be implemented using that bridge pattern. Therefore, we all might have used internet banking in our day-to-day life. Means we will have one payment gateway which we try to use during our final payment, and there will be different modes of payment that will be doing. Either it be credit card mode of payment or it will be net banking mode of payment, and we will use different banking gateways to achieve the same. The city payment, I have taken an example of this particular guy. Therefore, here in this particular code, this is the interface I payment gateway. Therefore, I payment gateway basically defines one API called process payment. Therefore, payment gateway is implemented by Citi Payment Gateway. Therefore, Citibank Payment Gateway. Therefore, this represents the payment gateway for a particular bank. For this particular guy implement this interface and defines this method. And what I'm doing essentially is trying to just print line that processing payment from Citibank through the mode, which is whichever payment mode we are getting here. And next is the IDBI Bank Payment Gateway, which is implementing the iPayment Gateway interface and which defines this process payment API and receives the payment mode as an argument. Therefore, here we will try to print the message from the IDBI Bank, and I'm trying to print the payment mode here. And next is the payment abstract class. Therefore, payment defines. Therefore, here this is the abstract class. And as we have seen in the bridge design pattern definition, this abstract class holds a reference to that interface. Therefore, here where that connection comes in, where that abstract class holds an interface or holds a reference to that interface, iPayment gateway interface. This is where that bridge connection happens essentially. Therefore, and here we have an constructor for that abstract class which takes in the type payment gateway. Therefore, this is dependency injection. This is called dependency injection, and this particular instance is chosen at runtime which payment gateway to choose. That is decided by the client, which is trying to use that particular payment mode, and it initializes this member variable and it defines one abstract API called make payment. If you go to the different banking, different modes of payment, net banking payment, it defines that constructor and it calls a base constructor and defines its own make payment API. It overrides that abstract API and calls the process payment API. As you remember, this process payment is an API defined in iPayment Gateway interface that we have seen before. And it actually, when the comes to this, it actually calls the process payment and it passes the mode of payment called net banking. Because this is a net banking mode of payment, it passes the net banking. And as we can see, another version of this particular payment in payment abstract class definition, the credit card mode of payment. So here the same thing, we will call payment gateway dot process payment and we'll pass the credit card mode of payment as an argument. For how this particular whole thing comes into action or comes live, we will see in the client side program.cs. Therefore, here we will see this in the bridge pattern. I have defined two gateways. I have created instances of two payment gateways, the City Payment Gateway and IDBI Bank Payment Gateway. And similarly, I have actually created two instances of payment modes as well. The for credit card payment mode, and this should be ideally net banking mode. Banking. Yes, it's internet banking, and this is a credit card payment mode. We'll remove that one that is not required. You have to press yes. Credit card payment mode. I have defined an object of credit card payment mode and in banking payment mode I have defined an object. So as you can see, this credit card payment mode I have passed in City Gateway, means I will be doing credit card payment through Citibank using Citibank Gateway, and in the net banking guy I will be doing net banking payment using IDBI Bank Payment Gateway. So this is where that dependency injection comes in. For this particular guy, when we try to inject, what happens is it comes here. You will get a payment gateway. We will initialize in the base class, and here while calling make payment, you can see we are calling credit card payment mode make payment and net banking dot make payment. For make payment, what it does is it actually comes here in the derived class. But if we go to credit card payment, make payment, it will call this payment gateway dot process payment. Therefore, it will go to the uh, Citibank payment gateway process payment. Whatever payment gateway that we have passed in the constructor, that particular process payment will be called and corresponding line will be printed here. So let's just run this, fire this up, and try to see what is the output that we are getting. Yeah. So we are getting this processing payment from Citibank through the mode credit card. Therefore, we will just verify whether this particular output is correct or not. Therefore, here we are calling this is the output from this particular first make payment. Or if we will go to the make payment, before that we will just inspect the object that we are creating here. We are calling Citibank payment gateway, correct? Therefore, since we are calling Citibank payment gateway, we will go to here and this particular API will be called and credit card will be passed. Therefore, here we will go to implementer, Citibank we will go, and here this should be the line which should be printed for the first API called processing payment from Citibank to the mode credit card. The output, yes, that's the output that we are getting. That's how this particular entire thing comes into action or comes live. Therefore, this is a basic working or bridge pattern in action. For this particularly a simple pattern to implement which avoids class explosion and complex class dependencies. We can actually separate it out using this particular bridge pattern so that the individual inheritance hierarchy can grow independently without bothering, without colliding or without having collision with other interface implementations, etc. That's basically about bridge pattern. And if you want to know the differences between the bridge pattern and the strategy pattern, please have a look at the previous video. I will just share the link in this particular video. And if you have found this particular video useful, do share with your friends and press on like, subscribe to get notifications for similar videos. And yeah, that's it for today's video. Thanks all for joining in. Have a nice day.